What's going on, everybody? Josh started raingutterbusiness.com. Today we're doing some commercial box downspouts, and we have a new profile that has been working really good. So I just wanted to show you guys that. We're at a commercial job site, so follow along. All right, so this is just some commercial 4 inch by 4 inch box downspout that we had bent up. You can buy this stuff. I've ran into a lot of problems with shipping and just logistics of getting this stuff to you. There's different colors involved. So so if you can try to keep everything with one, if you can find a good sheet metal guy in your area that'll bend you stuff, I've found it's a lot easier. And I've been experimenting with different profiles, and we're kind of getting it dialed in, working pretty good. So it's still not the most fun stuff to do in the rain gutter industry, but that's what it is. You got to just charge for it once you know how to do it well and plug through it. So like I said, we have a 4x4 box downspout. This is a new profile that I've been having bent up, and we call this profile the Francis style. This is some guy that does a bunch of these in town. This is the profile he uses, so I stole it from him. So Sheet Metal Shop said, yeah, we've been doing this for this other guy, and it works good. So there's just two little half-inch 90s. I think they're half-inch. Check for you real quick. Yep, half-inch 90s bent in there. The Sheet Metal Shop can't bend this stuff all the way around, so what you end up doing is folding this one inside and then hooking it together like that. So then you can rivet in, and works pretty good. So another issue I found is material thickness. When you get stuff shipped, a lot of times you can't get the thickness you need or what the spec, the architectural specs out, architect spec out. So we'll get this thing unwrapped, and then I'll show you guys how this works. So this is 22 gauge roofing material, basically. It's steel. So like I said, this top one's kind of sprung up. So I like to use something thin to push it in to start. Then you can kind of work your way down. Boom, pops together. So there it is. Now you got your downspout. One thing I've seen a lot of guys do, you can't put sealant in there if you want, like a clear sealant or whatever, but these seem to work pretty good. I haven't been sealing them, and I've been back to quite a few jobs, and they aren't leaking. So the only parts that I've seen have issues with are where I joint these together, and you got to make sure and kind of funnel that all in when you join another piece to this. So one thing to keep in mind when you're riveting this stuff together is like you should bring the camera over here. If you look down this thing, it's really easy to get these twisted. So I'll try to twist it. So you can twist it like that. So if you put a rivet in right now, this whole thing will just stay twisted. So before you put your first rivet in, you got to make sure that what I like to do is just check this plane right here, eyeball down it, and make sure it matches the other end. Make sure one end's not, tipped one way or the other. Make sure they're both parallel with each other. That is one thing that helps a lot, is to get the pieces straight. Helps, because as you go down, especially when like 2 or 3 story buildings, you get your first one crooked, and then it just affects your second, third. It just gets worse. The problem gets worse and worse. So something to keep in mind. So before I put my first rivet in, I will check that. Another thing I like to do is just go ahead and mark out where I want my rivets. So usually I just go 1 inch from the end, and then with this style, my old one I did 16 on center. This style, you don't have any rippling, so I just do 2 foot, just steel rivets every 2 foot. Just do little pencil marks every 2 foot, so you get a nice even rivet layout. Get your first rivet in, and then just double check everything. And I like to do my rivet in the side. That way, if you try to go in this lip, it'll push this in as you're trying to drill. And so if you go in here, you can't go anywhere because you're drilling straight into another piece. So, and I got that one crooked. So I need to re-drill it and fix it. But it's a lot easier to fix with one rivet than it is 5 rivets. There it is, nice and straight. So then you just kind of continue on. There's a spring loaded in there, so it pushes itself tight. And before we do that, I gotta build an elbow. So these are the existing downspouts on the building that we are matching. So one thing I like to do when I'm trying to just match something is I'll just go from the corner of the elbow out. It's a 9-inch elbow basically. And then I like to figure out what angle they did so I can match the angle. And so the best way to do that is to put this pivot point of your square on the back, swing it down until it matches the elbow, 25 degrees. So we'll do this at 25 degree kick out, 9 inches long. And then we're gonna build that on the end of our 10-footer. And then we can just make a little chunk for the top part. So that way the seam is not right at eye level, a little more hidden up and out of the way. Okay, so got my elbow figured out. A couple things to keep in mind before you start making your elbow is, where do I want this seam? It's probably gonna look best if we, I mean, this is a commercial job site, so not as big of a deal as far as one of those things. As long as it functions and looks good from 5 feet away, that's what they're looking for. A lot of times I do these on custom homes, so I'm really like trying to get that seam somewhere where nobody's gonna see it. But on this one, we got steel siding, nothing to worry about as far as if this ever did like push ice or water out. It goes onto the steel siding and it won't be a big deal. So I'll probably just hide it backwards towards the building. Anyway, sorry. Trying to bring you guys along with my train of thought here. I think I'm a little ADD, I've decided, so it gets a little wild sometimes. Okay, so we got 9 inches, 9-inch elbow. We'll go ahead and, I have one end riveted. We'll go ahead and just make a nice square line all the way around it. Got it. Okay, so when we've decided this is our back, so what needs to happen is this 9-inch piece needs to swing out this way. So what you do is you cut a little pie out. Bring your square to 25 degrees. I might go a little more. That seems a little ridiculous. I'll just match it. 25 degrees, okay. So normally I would do more, I'd do like 35 degrees. Just looks a little more custom to me. This looks a little more commercial, which is fine. Just not what I'm used to doing these on lately. Okay, 25. Boom. Okay, so basically we're gonna cut this pie out, and then this is gonna swing out and open on top of this and like kind of scoop it up. I always think of it as like a Pac-Man. So the Pac-Man's like chomping the upper part. And these go on the outside, that way water slides down the inside and goes into this piece. Just like doing a regular downspout, just a lot more complicated and more of a headache. So I found this tool, it's a nibbler, and I have the Makita version and this one, and they work so good. I usually just go outside of my lines with it, and it gets me my first kind of cut, and it'll go around corners and everything. The problem I've ran into, you'd think you could just cut this with a skill saw. The problem with a skill saw is the fence on the skill saw like scratches everything because the metal bits jump around and then get caught under there and just like scratches everything. Drives me nuts. So this thing works pretty good. So then this angle line is the one that's exposed, so that's the one I take the most care when I'm cutting. And then I like to make a little sweep up here at the end so it scoops a little more material. And I always carry both rights and lefts for this stuff. I like to end with this straight line and then kind of push hard. And what that does is pushes this lip out a little bit so it can scoop that up easier. This made it a little more complicated, me cutting it this way, because now my seam's at my joint back here, but we'll get her figured out. Okay, got that. Get this thing folded back together. Might rivet my top piece here. If this were like a show piece, I would probably trim that up a little bit, but it's probably gonna work better with it there, honestly. Give it a little more material. So now what I can do, since that's kind of a complicated joint, is just reach in here and put some glue on that, just to make sure it all seals together. Cool, worked out pretty good. Kind of check it out, looks pretty nice and square with everything. I like it. So we'll just go ahead and put a dab of glue in there and finish riveting this. All right, so one thing I need to do, so we have our downspout here built, our lower downspout. So I'm just gonna kind of match what they, as far as spacing and height goes. They're that far off the ground. So I'm gonna mark where this is gonna end up so I can get my measurement for this. And then I'm also gonna, while I have this up here, I'll use this as a straight edge to figure out where my first clip's going. You know, I've bash talked these magnetic Stabilas before, and I have come to enjoy it quite a bit for stuff like this. So I'll just get this thing level and then mark where that's gonna go. Okay, so we just kind of cut some V's in the corners of this, like relief cuts basically, and then just use my 3-inch seamers to just slightly bend that in so it funnels into the next piece. And then when I push that the 10-footer we previously built into it, I should be able to pretty much cover all of that and then rivet it together, and it should work good. So see how it goes. So I'm just using these old clips they already had up. Got some stainless steel zip screws. Oh, you bugger. Okay, push it up. Pushing up pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay. My drill's dead. Okay, there you have it. We got her done. It's leaking the whole way across the gutter, which is great because I was dry while I was putting the downspout up. So what they're doing is sealing in this gutter tomorrow. The roofers are coming to do a flat roofing seal strip between on the transition there. So that's why it's all leaking. But anyway, it's got the downspout up, turned out good, straight. A couple things to mention. It's always nice to keep kind of an eye on what material you have. So I have three downspouts to do on this building, and they were bid for 15 feet a piece, which is probably a little shorter than I would normally go. So I was kind of thinking about, okay, I have these 3 downspouts to do, and I only have 5 pieces of downspout. So that means I have enough for 1.5 sticks per downspout. So when I first measured this, it was a 10-footer and then about 62 inches. And I went to cut it and I was like, oh wait, I better make sure I have the right materials. So I just made it 60 inches. So now I have 2 60-inch pieces. I can use one for one downspout, one for the other. But if I would have cut that at 62, I would have screwed up my last downspout. So always a good idea to kind of keep your material in mind while you're doing this. And the height, I mean, it matches all the rest of these, so that's what we were going for anyways. 2 inches higher is perfectly acceptable. So Make sure and if you guys want to see us hang this gutter, make sure and check out this video and see how that's done. Make sure and like, subscribe, comment below. See you on the next one.